Welcome to the Managing and Nurturing Relationship webinar with Daylite. My name is James, and I'm part of the customer success team here at Market Circle. We're going to have a lot of great content to cover today. So we're going to discuss remembering the important details about the people and companies that we work with, tracking and storing important communication, remembering to follow up and deliver on commitments, keeping track of how people know each other, tracking when someone moves or changes companies, following up with people for repeat business, and last but not least, keeping in touch and staying top of mind. Over the 10 years that I've been with Market Circle, I've had the pleasure to speak with thousands of companies, and one important talking point has always been around the importance of caring about your people, your clients, your vendors, the leads, the people that you're doing business with. Without maintaining relationships with these people, business wouldn't exist. So strong relationships are built off of trust and accountability. Losing information about someone, forgetting important details, and forgetting to follow up really negatively impacts your work and damages the trust and accountability of those relationships. Showing the people you deal with that you have a strong understanding of who they are tells them that you care about them. And then ensuring that you deliver on your promises tells them they can count on you. So when you do business with someone, you're going to talk to them and you're going to learn more things about them. So you're going to learn things like their phone numbers, their email addresses, address information about their company, other people they know, how they know them. You're going to learn interests and tidbits of information that would be impossible to remember for every person that you're working with. So it's really important to track this information so over time, you're painting a very clear picture of the person you speak with, which allows you to free your mind to focus on your work. Now, why are these relationships so important? Well, it's the people that you're building stronger relationships with that are the ones that are more likely to generate business, have a stronger sense of loyalty to you, and will be the ones that are more likely to recommend your products or services or even buy from you again. So there's many things that we need to remember, from the commitments we make to the important dates or milestones about the people that we deal with. So let's start with capturing information so we can build some stronger relationships using Daylite. So to build these strong relationships, we need to start off with remembering the important details about the people and companies that we're working with. So for today's webinar, I'm just going to use my own Daylite sample account that I've set up. So to track any information about someone I know or to track any activities that I have with them, like phone calls, emails, meetings, I always start off with making sure I have a contact record for them. So I'm going to create a new person with just a first and last name. We'll just call this person Jim Anders. For anyone new to Daylite, once I click save, the record for Jim is going to be stored in the contacts section under the people object or group, I should title. And this way you can quickly find anyone that you've ever created in Daylite. Of course, you can also use the search. You're going to notice that people and companies are separate lists here. That's because we actually keep them as separate records in Daylite, but we'll get into this in a moment. Anytime that we want to work with Jim, we'll be able to get to his contact. Now, anytime we want to capture information about him, all we have to do is edit his contact. So I just clicked on the little edit button, and that way I can now work within his record. Now, you're going to notice that as I enter a phone number, Daylite's going to automatically add an additional phone number field right below. So the second I start working with this, so we'll just give it a label first. Once I start plugging in that phone number, you're going to notice the other field popped up directly below it. And this way I'll be able to capture multiple phone numbers, like his office and his mobile phone number. So I'm just going to quickly plug those in. But that way, anytime I need to call Jim, I'm not going to have to go hunting through email signatures, call notes. I'm going to have his phone number right within his contact. And you know what? If he says call me at the office, I now know the exact phone he wants me to call him on. But I'll be able to capture any phone number, email address, or address information that I need. So again, I'll just plug in a few details here. Just while I'm doing that, Daylite does have some other fields for contacts that it hides. These can be added to the contact record by using the Add Field button. You'll see it at the bottom of the edit card. This way, if there is another field that you want to include, you'll be able to add that field as necessary. Now, if there is a field within that list that you want to use on a regular basis, you can add that field by going into the edit card preferences from within Daylite. This way, you don't have to add that field each time. So from within the preferences, this is where you can check off the which of the contact fields are going to show up by default. So you'll be able to customize which ones you want to see. And then on the occasion where you might want to track one of the other fields, you'll be able to add that one as necessary. But once we check off hobbies here, the next time I go into the edit mode on a person, we'll be able to see the hobbies field right away. Now, once I save the changes to Jim's contact record, it's also going to hide any of my unused fields. So this way, when I'm viewing Jim, I can focus on the information I have rather than a list of blank fields. So it just makes it really easy to find the information I'm looking for. Now, I'm not done with Jim quite yet, so I'm going to go back into the edit mode. But this time, I'm going to double click on his name in the list. So this is a second way that I'll be able to edit his contact record. To track the type of person that Jim is to me, I'm going to use a category, and this way I can track whether he's a customer, a prospect, or any other type of person that I work with. I'll also be able to tag keywords. This way I can track multiple terms or phrases. That's going to help me better describe someone, like the fact that they're loyal or high value, or maybe have a certain interest that I'm going to use for marketing purposes. This list of keywords is completely customizable, so I can track any term or phrase that's going to help me segment my people later. So since he's a loyal customer, I'm going to give him a category of customer and the keyword of loyal. This way, when I want to find my loyal customers, including Jim, I'll be able to filter for those people. So I'll say, okay, the category is customer, the keyword is loyal. This way, if I want to find people to maybe let them know I have a new referral program, or maybe just thank them for being a customer, I can easily separate my loyal customers from other people in Daylite, making it really easy to find the people that I want to reach out to. So to get back into the edit mode on Jim's contact, I just showed a third way. This time I double clicked on the actual detail card. So whether you're clicking on the edit button, double clicking on the name in the list, or even just double clicking on the detail card itself, you can quickly get into the edit mode. So again, makes it really easy to work with the contact record so you can capture any important information you want to be able to remember. Now, once I find out the company that Jim works for, I want to add the company to Jim's record. So right below the first and last name is his company. Since we don't have one for him yet, we'll just see an add company button. And this will allow me to do a quick search. So this way, if I do have a company for Anders Inc. already, I can simply link Jim to that existing company record. Maybe I have some information already captured, some other people I know from there. I've had some correspondence or history. Rather than creating a new company, I can just connect Jim to the existing one. In the cases I don't have one, I can just create a brand new company right on the fly, and that way I can start working with it. Now, once I've created the little company, or I should say, once I've created the company, we'll see the little arrow. And that way we can actually jump directly to the company. Daylite creates a nice little slide over. That way we're not losing sight of Jim's contact record, but now we can work with the actual company record itself. So I'll be able to add or edit any of the company details. So if I want to add the main office phone number, the website, the actual address of the company, or anything else that's specific to the company, I'll be able to track that information here. Now we'll be able to classify the company with a category and keywords, just like we can with people. And we can even set details like the industry that that company is in. This way, when I'm viewing a company for someone, I can easily reference their industry or even find people based on the industry that their company is in. So that's one of the things that you can even use to filter for. We're going to show filtering and smart list, a whole bunch of good stuff later, but just really easy information that you can kind of capture as you're speaking with someone. That way you can make sure you've captured it and stored it in Daylite. That way, again, you're capturing a little bit of information, that tidbit of information you might want to use later. Now, if I have other information that I want to track, people and company records also have 12 of their own custom text fields and 4 custom date fields. So these are optional fields that can be labeled from within the custom fields pane in the Daylite preferences. So let's just quickly hop over there. Now, if you are thinking about using custom fields, but the information that you're thinking of is not information that you want to capture for every single contact record you have, you might want to consider using a custom, or I should say, you might want to consider using a form instead. So if you go into the form preferences, this is where you can customize forms. And this way you can actually set up forms to capture whatever information you want to be able to capture. Now, the nice thing about forms is they're a little bit more flexible. So as an example, if you wanted to have a client intake form, you could set up a form to capture that information. So forms are great for tracking information, whether it's specific to a person, like a questionnaire that you want to ask every new prospect, or maybe for an opportunity so you can capture certain information specific to a deal. But forms can be set up with a number of different types of fields. You have text fields, date fields, number fields, currency fields, drop downs, check boxes, and more. So I'm just going to quickly remove the field we just added here. But once I have a questionnaire set up, all I have to do is add it to the person's record. So in this case, if I go to Jim here and I add the questionnaire I have for him, or in this case, the client intake, I should say, I'll be able to fill it out and then reference this information at any time. So I'm just going to plug in a few details here. So he heard about us from our website, what they used in their past, blah, 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 the budget for the project. Again, I have that currency field. I have a couple check boxes I can check off, their ideal target date. So I'm using a date field. This way, whatever information I want to be able to capture, I can make sure I'm storing it in Daylite, linked to the person it's for. This way, not only will I be able to use this information when I'm reviewing them, but I can also use this information I've captured to create meaningful lists. So if I want to find all the people that have a client intake form filled out a certain way, I can now easily filter people based on that form information. So if we select forms and then select the form we want to base it on, so that client intake, now we can choose from fields within that form. So if it's a case of how they heard about us, well, maybe I want to find people from the website. I'll be able to find people that heard about us from their website now. So Jim, Kim, Adam. So if I wanted to reach out to these people, maybe do a little bit of research and say, hey, thanks for visiting our website. I just wanted to see if you had a few minutes to chat about your experience. In exchange, I'd love to offer you a 50% off coupon on your first order, or whatever that messaging might be. But the key here, I can find the right people with ease because the information I've captured in a form linked to their contact record. All right. So now that we have our contact record for Jim, that way we can remember the important details about him. We also set up a contact record for his company. That way we can capture that information as well. Let's start talking about tracking and storing important communication. So there's a lot of information that we communicate on a daily basis. And it's important to track who shared it, who it was shared with, what was exactly shared, how that information was shared, from the calls we have, the emails we send and receive, to the face-to-face discussions. Being able to look back and see all of our communication with someone really frees our minds from having to remember it. This way, we can really focus on the actionable stuff, the work we have to do. So when you track your communication in Daylite, you're not going to have to search multiple places to find what you need. Simply look up the person in Daylite, and you're going to see all their history, all in chronological order. This way, you're not going to have to rack your own brain about when you called them, what was discussed, and if you actually followed up with that email you're supposed to send. So let's talk about some of the common types of communication and how you're going to want to track that information in Daylite. So when I send an email to Jim with important information, I want to make sure that I'm capturing that information in Daylite. This way I can quickly find those details later. So I'm going to send Jim an email by selecting his email address in his contact record. This is going to trigger a new compose window in Apple Mail, so I can quickly set the subject and write a quick message like that important information that I want to send out. So I'll just quickly plug that in. Now, as I'm doing that, on the right-hand side, you're going to notice the Daylite Mail Assistant. So this lets me add the email and ensure it's going to be linked to any people, companies, projects, opportunities, tasks, or appointments that the email is going to be related to. I don't want to have to spend any time finding this email later. So this way, again, when I work on my tasks and I need to reference this email, or maybe when I'm viewing Jim in Daylite, I'm going to have the information visible right away. So now that we've sent that email, let's just hop back over. Let's go back to the task that I linked the email to. So I'm going to just do a quick search for that, just so we can jump to it. So here's the call Jim regarding the follow-up. Now that we have the task in view here, we'll be able to see that example email that I just created. This way, again, we can now reference that important information. So again, when I start working on that task, I don't want to have to go digging or hunting for this information. I'm going to have it right at my disposal. From within the Apple Mail preferences, you can customize the Daylite Mail Assistant settings. So the Daylite Mail Assistant, also known as DMA, can automatically link emails when you view or send an email, and it can also automatically link any related records. So this is where we can set this up. This way, when we send or receive an email, the people involved, an opportunity or project, any attachments in the email can automatically be linked and saved in Daylite. This way, you don't even have to think about it. When I have a call with Jim, I'm going to want to make sure I capture the call in Daylite so I know what happened, including any of the important information that I need to be able to remember or act on, the stuff we discussed. So I'm going to use a task to track this call, but we will talk about tasks versus appointments shortly. I'm going to give this task a title, and I'm going to link it to Jim so I know who the call was with. Now, I know when it took place because of the start and end field. In fact, you'll notice that my start time has automatically been set for this task, something that I've set up within the default value preferences in Daylite. And once the call is over, I'll just check off the task checkbox. But of course, you do have the ability to fill those fields in manually as well. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to capture when the call took place and when it finished. So really easy way to do that. Now, using the detail field of the task, this is where you'll be able to track what's discussed during the call. So this way, when you go back and look back at the task, you're not going to have to remember. You'll be able to immediately bring yourself back up to speed. And in fact, I can't tell you how many times just reading a few words kind of rejogs your memory and triggers that call. So you kind of remember it right away. But anytime I need to reference his history, just like I showed earlier when viewing a company, I can actually select the little arrow beside Jim's name, and now I can see his contact record and his history. Really handy. But once the call is over, all I want to do is check off that task checkbox, which fills in that end time, and then save the call in Daylite. Now you're going to notice that call has been linked to Jim's contact. So this way, I don't even have to think about it. If when I go back and look at his record, maybe he calls me a month from now, 2 months from now, a year from now, I'll be able to see the email exchange. I'll see the form I've captured. I see the call that we had, and I'll have the details that we discussed. So I'll have all of that at my disposal. If I was to run into Jim at a networking event, maybe out and about at a grocery store, any discussions that we have can be captured as a note in Daylite, linked directly to his record. This way I can easily capture the interaction occurred and any of the information that I want to be able to reflect on. Now, again, I'm just going to put some details in here, like he's trying to find a consultant in the industry and any of the stuff that we might have discussed. But now that I have my note, I'm not going to have to, again, rack my own brain about what we discussed. And I can even do this right away from my iPhone or iPad. This way I can make sure I'm not going to get distracted or maybe run into someone else before I get my note into Daylite. Just a quick tip. If you do use the iPhone and iPad to get your note in, I strongly recommend using the talk to text feature on the iPhone and iPad. That's the little microphone icon you'll see on the keyboard. Really handy to get your notes quickly in, especially when you are out and about and you don't want to spend a whole lot of time plugging away on that virtual keyboard. So regardless of where and how I communicate with Jim, the second I make a commitment, I need to ensure that I'm capturing that commitment in addition to the communication that took place. This way I'm not going to forget or get distracted, the things that usually cause things to slip through the cracks. So let's take a second to talk about remember to follow up and deliver on commitments using tasks and appointments in Daylite. Tasks and appointments tell me when I have to do something. Tasks are day oriented, where appointments are time and date based. Both can be used to track my commitments, just depends on the type of commitment I have. So if the commitment is that I need to follow up with Jim on Friday, I'm going to use a task to track this. That way I can set the due date for that Friday. If the commitment is time specific, like I have to call Jim at 2 p.m. on Friday, I'm going to use an appointment so I know my commitment requires my attention from 2 to 3 p.m. on that Friday. So let's go through this. If I'm working within a task record for Jim, like earlier when I was logging that call, the moment that I make a commitment, I want to make sure I create a task or an appointment in Daylite for Jim. That way I can remember it. Now, the easiest way is by using Daylite's contextual menu. This way I don't have to leave the task I'm working in. I can customize the contextual menu from within the Daylite preferences. This way I can choose which actions I want to be able to see. So to add an action, like creating a new task, just simply double click on it, and then it'll be added to the person menu. This way, when you do a control click or a secondary click, also known as the right click, you'll be able to access any of the actions that have been added, like the ability to create a new task or an appointment. This way you can make sure that you get those commitments in before you end the call. This ensures you're not going to forget or get distracted by something else that's going to steal your attention away. Now, you can always view Jim's contact record to create a new task at any time or create a new task from the toolbar and then link it to Jim afterwards. But the contextual menu is just a great way to quickly trigger actions in Daylite, especially if it's for something or for someone. And of course, you can customize the menus for each of the different objects in Daylite. So you can set up menus for how you work with people, companies, projects, opportunities, tasks, appointments. So tons of good stuff that you can customize there. Now, outside of Daylite, if I'm working on an email using Apple Mail, as soon as I send or receive an email where I need to follow up or deliver on a commitment, again, I want to create a new task or an appointment for Daylite. But the nice thing about this is I can do this without leaving Apple Mail. So again, I'm going to be able to ensure I get my commitment into Daylite before moving on to the next email or anything else. So I'm going to see the same fields I would see if I was creating this from within Daylite, but I get to see it from within Apple Mail. And I can even add this task to my work list if it's something I want to start working on today, just by clicking the little thumbtack in the top right-hand corner of the task. This way, when I start working on that task, I'm going to have the information from my email linked directly to the task. Again, makes it nice and easy so when we do need to work on it, we're going to have the information at our disposal. So when I view that task from my home screen within the work list section, so we'll just use that way to, or use that to quickly get to this task, we'll be able to see, yep, I have to speak with Jim Sparks, and I'll know, oh, yep, it's about I want to sell my house, and then I can see the exact email itself. Now, on the topic of being outside of Daylite, I can also set up a global shortcut for a new task creation window. So this can be set up from within the general pane in the Daylite preferences just by selecting the field. So if you go to the quick task entry shortcut, you'll be able to click in there and then type in on your keyboard the shortcut you want. Mine's actually a 4-key combination. So I have Shift Option Command T. This way I can hit that shortcut from anywhere on my Mac to quickly create a new task for Daylite. Now, this is actually how I typically log my inbound calls as well. But again, it's really up to you how you want to process that. Now, once I capture the commitment, I can set reminders on the fly or even set default notifications that can be automatically applied to new tasks or appointments I create. So I can set up my default notifications from within the notification pane in the Daylite preferences. And reminders can be customized for both tasks and appointments. This way, at 9 a.m. on the day every task is due, I can make sure I have a reminder. Now, if you're like me and you want to have reminders on all your tasks, you can even have default reminders applied to tasks and appointments that are received through delegation. This way, you don't even have to think about it. If a team member was to delegate a task to me, my reminders are going to be automatically applied. This way, if I was to somehow miss that delegation, and miss the task in my do list and everything else, I can still rely on the default notification. So a great place to stay on top of commitments is the home screen in Daylite. So we're getting all these commitments in. Well, how do we manage them? Well, the home screen is nice because it's going to show any tasks, any appointments, projects, or opportunities that are due or overdue. So anything that I'm responsible for. And I can also have a glance at the week ahead. So I can see any upcoming tasks, appointments, projects, or opportunities. This way I can focus on my commitments. Now, if you're wondering about opportunities and projects, we'll talk about those a little bit later. But in addition to using the home screen, I can also see tasks and appointments from the Daylite calendar. So any appointment that I add to Daylite, as well as any appointment that I've been invited to by a Daylite team member, will appear on my calendar. Now, if I want to see my tasks on my calendar, I can add tasks, projects, opportunities, birthdays, anniversaries, and I can even show completed tasks or canceled appointments. So I can really customize the calendar information that I'm displaying. As I continue to remember the important details about people and ensure that I stay on top of my commitments, I'm going to begin to foster stronger relationships. So over time, I'm going to learn more and more about these people, including people they know. As I meet or get introduced to these people, their family, their friends, their coworkers, I want to make sure that I'm tracking these relationships. So let's talk about keeping track of how people know each other using Daylite. So in Daylite, when I link two people together, I can set a relationship. When I define a relationship within the roles and relationship preferences, I can set a forward and reverse relationship. Now, an easy way to think about forward and reverse relationships is when you have a referral. One person is being referred, the other is referring the person. It's one relationship between two people, but depending on who you're looking at, the relationship has slightly different context. So if we hop into the preferences here and we go into relationships, we can see, okay, is assistant Dove. Well, John is the assistant of Jane. And if we look at the reverse, Jane has assistant John. Just like if we look at referred, John referred Jane, or Jane was referred by John. So this way you can really manage the relationship so you know exactly the context behind it. Now, if I need to add Jim's brother Andrew to Daylite, maybe we're communicating and I find out, oh yeah, my brother Andrew is visiting for the weekend or whatever that might be. I want to create a contact record so I can remember that piece of information. So from Jim's contact record, I can actually create a new person. And this will tell Daylite to automatically link Andrew to Jim's contact record for me. This way, all I have to do is plug in his name or whatever details I have. The last thing I want to do is make sure I set that relationship. So if I know it's his brother, I can set that accordingly. So anytime that I'm looking at Jim, I'll be able to remember, oh yeah, he's got a brother, Andrew. Now, keeping track of these details really helps paint a detailed picture of the people that we're working with. So anytime we're conversing with them, we're going to have these relationships at our disposal as well. I can't tell you the type of response you'll get when you drop a little tidbit of information that you remember from a call a month back where, oh yeah, how was your visit from your brother, or however you want to frame that, but it gives you a little piece of tidbits of information that allow your mind to associate the other stuff that you've just forgot you remembered, and it really goes a long way with building those relationships. Now, not only will you be able to easily tell who someone knows, but the nice thing about tracking those relationships is you can also find a set of people that share the same type of relationship, like all the people that have referred someone to you. Someone who's referred someone is more likely to refer more people as long as you continue to foster that relationship with them and stay top of mind, something that we will touch on a little bit later. But now that we've asked Dayla to show us a list of people that have a relationship is referred, we can now see anyone who has referred someone to me, like Chris here, who referred Adam. So it makes it really easy. Again, not only do you get to reference those relationships as you're working with someone, but you can also take a step back and say, okay, well, let me see all the people that have referred someone to me. So if I want to target them, I now have that information at my disposal. Now that we've talked about tracking who my people know, let's talk about remembering someone's current and past company, or companies maybe. So in some industries, people move around a lot between companies, and it's difficult to remember the company someone's worked at. Daily can help you remember the current company as well as past companies with the use of rules. So, similar to relationships, when I link a person to a company, I can track the role that that person plays. I can add a job title, department for additional clarity. In fact, I recently learned Jim's job title, so let's just quickly update his contact record with it. So, this is great for tracking what Jim does at his company. If months or years go by, I'm going to have this context to reflect back on. And if Jim has multiple roles at his company, I can link Jim to his company multiple times. So if he's the owner and CEO, I can track both of these roles. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to take off the second role here. But this way, again, you'll be able to track those. Now, the nice thing about that is if you wanted to track maybe the owner and CEO independently, you could do that. If you wanted just to lump them together, you could do that as well and just keep it as a single role. So you really have lots of flexibility there. Now, I also find it helpful to remember someone's past companies. This way, it won't forget or won't sound like I forgot a huge change in someone's life. So I track past companies by having a role type that represents someone used to work there, like ex participant. This way, anytime I find out that Jim maybe changed companies or maybe he shares something that he used to work somewhere in the past or whatever that might be, I'll be able to track that information by connecting him to a company. And this way, I'll be able to remember any company that Jim's been a part of. Now, the nice thing about the activity is I can toggle it just to include companies. I can also see the companies that are part of his detail field, or his contact card, I should say. And you can also set the primary company that someone's associated with. So if I wanted to change it to Greenfield and Co., I can do so, just like if I want to change it back to Anders Inc., you'll notice at the very top, the primary company change there. And that way I can always tell someone's current company while still remembering all the previous roles that someone might have had or past positions with the company. So, and again, you can customize the roles. So if you wanted to keep the job position or maybe just use the job title and use that field for that instead, again, you have lots of flexibility there. So it makes it really easy to remember that information. So now that we have a handle on tracking details about the people and the companies that we work with, along with the correspondence and the commitments that we're making, let's take a second to discuss the business and the repeat business side of things. Before we can generate repeat business, we need to make sure that we're capturing the right information and doing all the necessary to dos along the way. There's many phases a prospect's going to go through, from researching right through to purchasing. So let's talk about the process and the type of information that you're going to want to capture. Now, some people will call this a sales process. Others might define it as a lead generation process. But these are just fancy names that represent the steps that I go through when a person's making a decision to work with me, whether that's someone new or even a person that I've worked with in the past. So I'm going to use the record that I created for Jim's brother Andrew to illustrate this a little bit. When Andrew contacts me and is inquiring about a service I offer, but isn't in the market to make a decision, so a situation where he just wants to learn more, I want to keep him on my radar. This way I can stay in touch. After all, he has shown a level of interest. So my goal here is to continue to stay top of mind. Someone like Andrew is a potential prospect who I track with the use of a keyword. In this case, I have a business consultation prospect keyword that I'll use to track people with that very interest. I'll also ask if I should follow up on a certain day. This way I can add a task with a reminder to track that, or maybe include them in my monthly newsletter that's going to send out information about the service he's interested in. This is important because A, I can follow up when asked using that task. B, I can continue to share knowledge and insight until he's ready without having to spend a one-on-one resources with him, which is going to mean that I'm continuing to foster that relationship without having a lot of personal energy towards him. There's only so many hours in the day. Prioritizing where and who I spend my time on is extremely important. Again, over time, as long as the information you're providing is giving him value, you're becoming a point of authority, which is increasing the respect and faith he has in you and being able to achieve your job on top of the personal recommendation he's already had from his brother. So when Andrew's ready, guess who's going to be top of mind? Once I know someone is in the market to make a decision, this is where I want to do everything within my ability to win this business. So I'm now ready to prioritize more time towards Andrew, and I'll do that with the use of an opportunity. So the opportunity gives me a way of focusing on the people I've qualified, the people that I want to spend my time on. It's going to track Andrew's purchasing decision and all the activities and correspondence surrounding it. When I win, lose, abandon, suspend the opportunity, I can also track why. Now, once I have a state in here, the different state reasons change. So if I go into one, I'm going to see a different list than if I go into lost or any of the other states. These can be edited and customized to match the different state reasons you're dealing with. Knowing this information is pivotal in understanding what leads to winning and losing business. Coupled with knowing where that business is coming from and any of the other important information you're tracking, this is how you can begin to notice trends in what works and what doesn't work, and the type of people that you should be looking for and following up with. This is the kind of insight that's going to help better qualify the people you do business with. If you realize you're prioritizing someone because of X, Y, and Z, but you realize, you know what, I don't end up working with these people very often. One, you need to look at how you're qualifying these people and if they really are qualified, or if there's something else that needs to be changed. The opportunity is also going to help me stay on track and ensure nothing's going to slip through the cracks. This is also where I can streamline my sales process so I can do everything within my power to win this business. So I'm going to create a new opportunity for Jim. So let me just hop over to Jim's record. We're going to give it a title to represent what the opportunity is going to be about. So we're going to call it Business Consulting Opportunity for Jim Anders. And we'll connect any people that are going to be involved. So I'm going to set the role these people are going to play. This way, if I have multiple people or even team members that are going to be involved, I'll be able to quickly find, say, the decision maker or maybe my team member that's taking the lead on this. That way I can quickly get in touch with the right person I'm looking for. Now, to make sure that I get all my work done and I'm not missing any deadlines, I've defined a simple pipeline with a few stages. This way I can make sure nothing's going to slip through my cracks and I get all the work done I need to get done. Now, I'm going to capture all the information I need and really complete all the actionable items required of me from start to finish. Now, in this case, the first step is going to be make sure that I add the form that I'm using to capture the information I need to be able to generate a quote. So if I don't have all the necessary details, it's very black and white. I can see right away I have fields missing within my form. And I can even have a task to remind myself to reach back out just to make sure I have captured all the necessary information. Now, this is going to make it very easy to make sure that whatever information that I need to capture, like the details that I'm using to generate a quote, I can ensure that I've captured all the information I need during the interactions I'm having with the client or with that prospect. This way, I don't have to waste any time going back and forth with someone. I'll be able to start generating the quote before, realizing, gosh, I don't actually have everything I need yet. And just potentially waste half an hour or whatever that time frame might be. So again, it makes it really easy to ensure that if there is information you want to capture on a regular basis, you can define your process to achieve that. Now, as I complete my work, I can advance the pipeline forward, and Daylite will continue to create the necessary tasks and appointments that I need to do. This way, I can focus on doing my job. Now, once Jim decides to pull the trigger, I can advance my pipeline to the finalized stage. This way, I can make sure I do everything I need to do now that I've won this business, like marketing it as one, setting the state reason to track that why, and then creating a project that I'm going to use to make sure I deliver on my commitments to Jim. So let's just quickly set the state and state reason. We'll then use the contextual menu to create a new project from this opportunity. So we're going to do a right click on the opportunity. One of the action items I've set up is new project from opportunity. And the nice thing about this is the opportunity remains intact, but it's now going to be linked to a project. Now, the nice thing about this is I can reference the opportunity at any time from the project, but the project is now going to track and store all the information specific to the actual business consultation. This way, if I need to find an email, a phone call, a note, I can go right to the project rather than having to skim through an opportunity, or even worse, Jim's record that has a whole bunch of more information. So again, it makes it really easy to be able to define exactly what you're looking for. Now, once I win this business and, of course, deliver on my promises, that relationship shouldn't end. These are people that can buy from me again or share how great of an experience they had working with me, which will drive referral business. After all, there's nothing better than a personal recommendation. So having a process to build repeat business is really important, something you want to think about. Again, you've already built relationships with these people. So if you are in an industry where you can work with the same person again, you want to have your process designed to support that. Maybe drive or try to drive, I should say, some additional business from them along the way, including anyone that they can refer to you. Now, if you are in an industry where that repeat business cycle is many years or longer, or maybe doesn't really exist, you want to build your process around driving referral business, since the likelihood of working with those people again is pretty slim. But whatever process makes sense, you want to ensure that you can continue to provide value to these people that you've been building relationships with. So filtering for people who have a one opportunity is a great way of finding the people that you've done business with. This way you can target them or even segment them further. So if you wanted to find people based on their opportunity, we could say, okay, opportunity state is one, and now we'll find anyone that has an opportunity linked to them where the state was set to one. Pretty straightforward. When I track someone's interests, what they bought, how they bought it, where they came from, I can use this information to build a really strong understanding of the people I do business with. The better the understanding, the easier I can generate repeat business, from the actual approach I take to the language I use. So let me give you another example here. You might not need to cross-sell, but say I was to cross-sell another service I offer. Well, I want to find people who are going to be interested in that service. So based on the keywords that I've been using, I can easily find people that are going to be interested in that. I can also ask Daylite to exclude people. So as an example, if I want to exclude someone that already has an opportunity about that very service I'm interested in, we can now exclude people that have actually heard about it. So what this does is, again, it gives me a precise list. I now have people that are going to be interested in what I want to tell them about, but they haven't heard about it yet. So if I wanted to say something like, hey, TJ, I know how much you love Dex. Got to show you why. I've shared it with a few friends of mine like yourself, and I keep hearing how great Zed is. Well, Zed being that common state reason that I've been tracking for my one opportunities that came from the same source of people. Whether I want to email them, give them a call, this is a great way that I can find the right people that I can provide the right value to. a great recipe for generating repeat business. Part of that successful recipe to generating repeat business is keeping in touch. After all, it is the fundamental building block to any personal or professional relationship. So, last but not least, let's talk about staying in touch and or keeping in touch and staying top of mind. So I'm a pretty busy guy. It's really easy to lose track of the last time I was actually in contact with someone. So to make sure my relationships don't go stale, I want to do everything within my ability to make sure I check in every so often. So I've set up two smart lists. One is going to be based on their activity. Another one's going to be based on their upcoming birthday. So the activity one is based on people who do not have any activity linked to them in the last 60 days. This way I can have my list. I can drill in further. Anytime that someone hasn't had that activity, they're going to appear in my list. The other list I want to do is a little birthday list. So this way I can see who has a birthday coming up in the next month. This way I can reach out and be the first to congratulate them. But by using these smart lists, it gives me a really easy way to stay on top of the people that I haven't been in contact with, so I can make sure that I'm staying top of mind and keeping in touch. Now, when I want to send out my birthday greeting or any message for that matter, I have a few options. So I can click on the person's email and their contact record, like I showed earlier, automatically create a new email in Apple Mail. Really handy if I want to compose a one off message. If I have multiple people that I want to wish a happy birthday to, an easy way to send individual personalized emails to multiple people is with the use of a letter template in Daylite. So, a letter template is a pre written message that you can personalize with the use of merge keys. So, a merge key just takes information from the person's contact and it adds it to their template, like their name or birthday information. Letter templates in Daylite are really great for quick and simple messages. So, from within the letter templates pane in the Daylite preferences, you'll be able to set up your own templates. So, if we close out of here and just hop into there first, when you click on the little plus sign in the bottom left-hand corner, that's where you can create a new template. You can also double click on an existing one to edit it, and it's going to open up a compose window. So this is the template that's being used as to be merged with to send out to your people that you're reaching out to. Now to set this up, it's really straightforward. You just type into it. So let's recreate this message so we can see for ourselves. So I'm just going to start typing in hi, but because I want to personalize it, I'm actually going to grab their first name. So I'm going to grab the merge key first name, and then I can continue typing. So I can say, I just wanted to shoot you a quick message to wish you a happy birthday. I'm going to add another merge key for their actual birthday information. So I'll say, I know your birthday is not until. Then again, I'm going to grab another merge key for that. And then we can continue along. But I was thinking of you and wanted to wish you the best. This way, when it's going to generate the email to be sent out, it's going to be personalized with their name and birthday information. So now that we have our letter template, let's send it out to a few people. I'm going to use my contextual menu to quickly merge this letter so we can send it out. We're going to get 3 individual compose windows that we can now easily send out. And again, I have to do this every month. Obviously, I'm going to have new sets of people for birthdays. So I want to be able to do this as efficiently as possible. So with the use of the smart list, I can quickly find the people with birthdays coming up. And then with the use of my letter template, I can then reach out to them and quickly send them a message. Now, that's just an email example. If you wanted to give them a call or do something else, you'd be able to do that as well. So lots of flexibility, but the purpose, again, is being able to quickly find the people you want to be able to target. And that way, as part of your process, you can make sure that no one's going to really slip away and fall out of contact. Now, some people may want to stop being contacted. That's where you can even use keywords to tag those people and then exclude those keywords from your list. So again, you have lots of flexibility to be able to manage this. Now, keeping in touch every so often is nice, but it's not necessarily going to help stay top of mind, which is really key when someone is ready to buy a service or think to recommend a service to a friend. So I want to be the person that Jim or Andrew thinks of, which is why one of the tools in my tool belt is that mailing list. I can provide relevant information on a regular basis, whether it's providing benefits and reasons someone needs a service I'm offering, or maybe providing information that's going to educate them, like new technologies or maybe methodologies. This is resulting in me becoming a point of authority when it comes to what I do. So, what kind of topics or information can you provide to stay top of mind when it comes to the people you know? Or what kinds of topics are your people going to be interested in even hearing about? Tracking these interests are really important. This way, we know exactly who's interested in what, so we can build mailing lists accordingly. Now, the moment we find out that Jim is interested in growing his business, we can make sure we tag a keyword that we use for people with that interest. And again, when I go to filter my mailing list, I can then find people with just that interest of growing their business. So if I have an article or piece of information I want to share, I can quickly find the people I'm looking for. So if I want to say, okay, so from my mailing list, who's interested in growing a business? Well, we'll add another keyword here. So we'll say, okay, match all of two keywords. So it has to be both mailing list and interested in growing a business. And now we have Jim. Now, obviously, we just set that up, so we only have the one. But as I had more people interested in this topic, I'd be able to reach out to them about that as well. Again, you want to be able to stay top of mind. You want to be able to keep in touch, and that way you can keep those relationships fresh. Now, when I ensure that I'm top of mind and that I've built strong relationships off of trust and accountability, new business will continue to come through. So it's important to make sure that I'm building a process that allows me to repeat my success. I'm going to be organized. I'm going to have all my important details in one place, and I'm going to be on top of all my commitments. I'll be able to consistently show the people I deal with I have a strong understanding of who they are, and I'm not going to let them down. Thank you for attending today's webinar on managing and nurturing relationships with Daylite.